Right, so welcome to the webinar today. The subject today is best practices for building an online eLibrary. And we're going to get started with a quick overview of the agenda today. We're going to start with a little bit of an introduction to INM, just so you know who we are and why we're delivering this content today. Then we're going to take a look at an eLibrary. So we'll look at a definition for an eLibrary so we're all on the same page with what we're talking about. We'll also look at some examples of eLibraries. Then we'll start to get into the best practices and what you should consider when building an eLibrary. So we'll look at the key elements of audience, content, access, and we'll get into each of those in a little more detail. Then we'll look at the user experience and how to design your eLibrary so that really it is built for your user. And finally, we'll look at leveraging the right technology and what choices that you have in building an eLibrary and the technology that you opt for. So to get started, just a little bit of background about INM and who we are. We really have a long history of delivering products and services that help organizations leverage rich content. And in the earlier days, that was a lot of CD-based projects. Today, we're doing a lot of work online with rich internet applications and rich media. And we've helped organizations across the years really focus on delivering highly formatted content in a very visual and searchable fashion. So eLibraries, even though they are a new offering for us in that capacity, they are really at the foundation of everything we've done from a project perspective for nearly 20 years. We have a really strong and international client base. We've got clients across the globe of all different sizes in all different industries. And we really have a mix of products and services that we offer that help organizations. So in terms of looking at an eLibrary, what we're referring to when we talk about an eLibrary is a portal, an intranet, extranet, or internet site that replicates the resources of a physical library. So what you would find in a typical library, but in an electronic format, and generally the benefit of going electronically means that provides improved access and improved search capabilities. So that's what we're referring to when we talk about an eLibrary. And when we get into that definition a little further, an eLibrary can contain a variety of different types of content. And that content could be things like electronically acquired documents, journals, magazines, digitized content that you have that you've scanned in and made available, content that's freely available on the web, in content repositories, links to free and open content, or even originally published works. And in fact, we're seeing a lot of interest from organizations that have a large volume of original content that they're looking to add that advanced level of search capability and organization to put online. We look at some examples. An eLibrary really can be a variety of different things. It can be a customer or a partner resource center for your products or services. It can be a collection of back issues for your organization's journals or magazines. It could also be a company-wide resource library that you have for your employees or for your sales and marketing team, a collection of industry or topic-related reference materials, and this is very common with associations and organizations in the nonprofit sector that may have a concentration of research that they make available to the general public. Or it could be a collection of music or video or image files that you're making available in a searchable catalog format. So as we get started this morning, we're coming to our first polling question. I just wanted to take a second and learn a little bit more about the group we have online today. So the first polling question, which will be appearing on your screen, actually it's up now, is what type of eLibrary project are you interested in? And if you could take a second, please, just to check on the appropriate response. What I have here is an internal eLibrary, partner library, university, college, public, or community library. And then I have a category called Other. And for Other, because we're not able to collect that data through the polling question, what I would ask is if you're answering Other, if you could just jot a quick note in the chat window for Nadine, so we can have a reference of what it is that you are interested in there. Okay, so I think we're with most of the votes in. Okay. So it looks overwhelmingly like many of you have an internal library that you're looking to either set up or to start working on. So that's good. Excellent. So there'll be some good information in here for you today. And for those of you with other configurations, certainly this will be helpful as well. Wanted to take a look at a couple of different projects of different sizes and magnitudes that are all libraries in their own way. The first one we're going to take a look at is a very simple project that is a veterinary manual that was moved from a paper book that was about 2,300 pages and moved onto a CD. Now, you may not think this is a true e-library, but it actually is in the sense that it provides a volume of content and it makes it very searchable in a highly organized way with an interface on top of it. And this is a smaller project that was done a few years back, and it really changed the way that a 45-year print tradition was delivered to its audience, and it was extremely well received. So users can search by keyword, browse by subject, and search through the content to find what they're looking for. So if we look at that, the second project I wanted to show you was, it's not actually an e-library, but it's something that's quite unusual, which is an e-library toolkit. And this is a project that we worked on with a company called Sophony out of France. And Sophony actually builds e-libraries for other organizations. So what they've done is they've worked with organizations in the historic market and in the with organizations with a large volume of very old content. And they create e-libraries that contain somewhere between 60 and 70,000 pages of text that needs to all be full text, indexed, and searchable. And this toolkit that we built for them allows them to create these libraries without doing any of their own coding. So it's all just a quick drag and drop and a populate of content, and they're ready to roll with the e-library. And the third project is probably a little bit closer to what many of you are looking to do with your own collections. This is the Terrace Public Library, which is an institution that's in Terrace, British Columbia. And this is a community library that serves about 5 or 6 different outlying communities in northern British Columbia. It's a project that we worked on to take their whole history of newspapers that was available on microfiche within the library and make them searchable and accessible to users within the community from their own computers. So we created an application that uses rich internet technology to allow users to search for newspapers by keyword, to view thumbnails of those results, and then to pull up the full newspaper on screen. So it was quite a challenging project in the sense that there was a large volume of content, and the users, as you can see here, from 12 to 70, so it's a very diverse user experience with a large variety of users with different levels of expertise. So it was certainly something that was challenging. And this project is online, and I'd be happy to give you the URL for that after if you wanted to take a look at it and browse through it. It's just terracelibrary.ca is the library's address if you wanted to look at that in more detail. And second polling question. I just wanted to gather a little bit more information about your interest in the session today if you're currently working on an e-library project. So that will be popping up on screen. Take a second for the votes to come in. Okay, so probably about half of the people today have a project underway, and the other half are, I think, probably just getting into research to plan something for the future. So, okay, great, excellent. Thanks for the information. All right, so we're going to start now in looking at what to consider with your eLibrary. So if you've got this underway, this may be a bit of a refresher and a checklist for you. And if you're new to the project, this is a good way to start looking at what you'll want to look at with your eLibrary. So we're going to start today with a quick overview of the key elements, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail with each of them. The first and the number one factor to consider is, who are you designing this eLibrary for? So looking at the profiles of your users and the needs of your audience. Secondly, then it's the content, and we've been told, years and years for the last several years, we've been told that content is king. And certainly it is king, but audience is the number one consideration, content is number two. So what are you looking to present or show to your audience? And the third is access. So how are users going to use your library? Are they going to access it from home, from work, etc.? So we'll look at those three elements. And these are your three pillars for your eLibrary, and everything that you do really should reflect on each of these three areas. And then finally, we're going to look at technology. And the way that we like to present this is that once you've decided on the three above, then you choose your technology. So many people, when they start a project such as an eLibrary, they get very excited about the options from a technology and a software perspective, that they try to start with their choice there and to fit their needs into each of the other areas. But certainly we recommend the opposite. So we're going to drill down a little bit into audience and look at the requirements there. In terms of what you should consider, the first one is the age of your audience. Are your audience members young or old or somewhere in between or all of the above? And if you're looking at a consumer-facing application, chances are that answer is all of the above. And that does provide a lot of challenge for you in terms of designing the user experience for your eLibraries. Things like text size and information density, as well as screen colors, are things that you'll need to consider when you've got a diverse audience. The other factor you want to look at is familiarity with the subject matter. So if you're developing an eLibrary with a broad range of users with a broad range of interests, then the structure for your eLibrary may need to provide a little bit of explanation on industry-specific terminology or resources. If it's something that's very targeted and for a group of users that knows the subject matter well, you may be able to forego that. The third element is technical competency, and for that we simply mean, are your users adjusted to using electronic resources? So are they familiar with right click and scroll wheels and scroll buttons and those types of things, or do you need to consider this when you're building your eLibrary? And fourth is special needs. So do you need to support a broad population that may have some special needs and may need to be able to use screen readers or braille readers, those types of things with your eLibrary? That's something to consider, especially if you happen to be in a university or government organization. A lot of the times compliance with Section 508 is a requirement. That's something that you need to consider. And involvement with the organization. So are your users involved and active with your organization? And if so, you may be able to convince them to spend a little bit more time becoming familiar with your eLibrary than if your users are not engaged and involved with you on a regular basis. The next thing that we'll want to look at for audience is what those rights of the audience members are. Does your audience have different roles? Does it have different permissions that you need to make available for access to content, for ability to retain copies of documents, for adding content? Are there certain individuals that have the privilege of being content authors or administrators? These are things you'll want to consider and make sure that your choice on the eLibrary front supports these roles. When we get into the second pillar and we start looking at content, it's really